Hello, loves. Welcome to awakening to the delusion of separation and coming together with love. The astrology of Neptune in Pisces, part 1. Not sure when part 2 is going to come out, probably sometime in late April. I'm Divinely Jennifer, and I wanted to come in and send you this, bring you this, because the energy of Neptune in Pisces is pretty amazing. So I'm sure you're fine not seeing my face. So I might be getting in over my head with this audio about Neptune in Pisces. And that's a corny Pisces joke, so you can laugh now, getting in over my head, because Neptune is all about the ocean and water. But seriously, there's a lot to share. And you might be a little bit cross-eyed and head might be swirling by the end. I was tempted to split this into 2 shorter posts, but given that the theme of this posting is about coming together, not separating, I'm going to trust and have faith that it will reach those who need and want to take in these insights that wish to be expressed. So, one of the things I love so much about astrology is that while we can't totally predict the future, we can certainly anticipate the energy of what's coming in the days, weeks, and months ahead. And as I look at the days, weeks, and months ahead, I see that Neptune is going to be a major player all year long. So depending on when you're listening to this, I'm recording it on March 12th, 2022. So Neptune's going to be a major player all year long. And last year, we had our eyes on the Pluto, Eris, and Saturn, Uranus squares. Those were the big news in astrology last year. This year, Neptune is in the proverbial spotlight, especially this spring. Neptune has been in Pisces, where he is considered the modern ruler, since 2012. He won't relocate into independent, get off my ass, risk-taking Aries until January 2026. So we still have a few years of this energy to contend with. Neptune is the masculine ruler of the seas and oceans, dreams and intuitions. I would consider Sedna to be the feminine ruler. On the shadow side, Neptune represents fog, deception, delusion, fantasy, confusion, feeling lost or blind in the deep depths. Some might say he oversees the sirens and mermaids who have enticed the sailors into waters for millennia. You know, those myths of the Rhine River and the Hebrides and all these different places around the world that have these myths and fairy tales around the sirens enticing the sailors into the water and to their deaths. In his higher vibrations, Neptune connects us to our dreams and the divine. He represents our connection with the universe, the cosmos, and the one consciousness. And he illuminates the God and goddess that exist within each and every one of us, which connects us all. This God and goddess energy actually connects us all to the one consciousness. Neptune is imagination and channeled, inspired creativity. Dancing, writing, painting, making music intuitively with our eyes closed, feeling, not seeing, letting spirit move us and shape us. He's about making love from the depths of our soul, sacred sex, rapture, ecstasy. Remember that scene in When Harry Met Sally where Meg Ryan's character fakes an orgasm in the restaurant? With some Neptune and Pisces transits, you don't have to fake it. It's the real deal. I'll have what she's having, please. With Neptune, no one quite knows or can predict what will happen. I've heard many astrologers saying, yeah, I just don't know how to interpret the energy of the transits this year. And that's because of Neptune in Pisces. He's unpredictable and murky, like the sea mists and fog on the shores of the oceans. Neptune in Pisces transits can also manifest as storms, flooding, and tsunamis, both literally and figuratively. People can experience big waves of emotions, which can lead to healing if People are ready for it, and some are not. They're too lost in the shadows to see the light peeking through, and that's okay. That's their path. These aren't the ebbs and flows of emotion like we may experience with Cancer transits, but these are soul-crushing, sobbing on the floor, and I'm going to either throw up or wet my pants laughing fits. People may feel surges of murderous hate on one end of the spectrum and beyond the galaxy unconditional love on the other. While at other times, you may feel like you're submerged in pitch black darkness, only to awaken in what feels like a new universe in a new world, possibly with a hangover. Or I guess that would be a new world in a new universe, but with the same hangover. Neptune in Pisces transits can also impact our health. First and foremost is congestion. How many people do you know suffering from terrible allergies right now and not being able to breathe well because their nose is so stuffed up? People may also experience excessive or uncontrolled bleeding, as well as swelling from water retention or stagnant lymph. It's not hot, red, painful inflammation, but cold and blue puffiness. I'll bet Ulta is selling a lot of concealer right now for women trying to hide the circles under their eyes. And in fact, I just got home from a walk and my daughter was complaining about the dark circles under her eyes. Neptune can also manifest as lack of circulation and cold limbs, feeling cold, especially with the relentless rain that happens in some places this time of year after a cold and snowy winter. So it'll get warm, and just as you think spring is coming, boom, here comes more rain and cold. We can also get headaches between the eyes, especially when we ignore our intuition and what our inner truth is telling us. There is a real risk of getting lost in substance abuse when we are ignoring our truth or when we feel separated from God, the universe, the one consciousness. You may go on a psilocybin or ayahuasca trip and never come back, getting lost in infinite psychosis instead of holy inspiration, even if the person leading the ceremony has the training and experience to hold space. Consider holding off on any plant medicine journeys until May or June, when the energy of the cosmos starts to ground. Conjunction, junction, what's your function? Remember those back in the day on Saturday morning TV? Well, what draws my attention to Neptune in Pisces as the star of the show this year starts with the many planets conjuncting or coming together at the same degree, minute, and second as Neptune, especially this spring. Pallas Athena was actually the first planetary body to meet with Neptune in 2022 on January 17th, and they met at 21 degrees and 1 minute of Pisces. Pallas is very strategic and a wise warrior, and I'm laughing because my dictation program auto-corrected warrior to lawyer, and Pallas would indeed make a great lawyer. But in Pisces, she's much more about intuition and vision. As this conjunction occurred during both the Venus and Mercury retrogrades, the depth of this transit may not have dawned on you until earlier this month when Venus cleared her retrograde shadow. What divine truths have illuminated your being since January 17th? If you're not sure, it could be helpful to reflect back through journaling, art, music, or other creative outlets. Springing forward into Pisces. The Sun is the first of many planets to conjunct Neptune this spring. After a pause from June to December, asteroids Juno and Vesta will restart the cycle in late 2022 and early 2023, but there will be lots happening with Neptune in between that time. For now, let's look at the first 3 conjunctions between March 13 and April 12th. They're the reason this audio is so long. Just after much of the United States and Canada spring forward into daylight savings time, the Sun conjuncts Neptune at 3:43 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time on March 13. They're both at 22 degrees 52 minutes of Pisces. Your brain may already be foggy from the time change. It's not necessarily a day for hashing out specific details and solutions to problems, unless, of course, you start intuitively channeling from the morphogenic field like Tesla or Mozart. Instead, you may find yourself pausing and lingering for no reason at all. In fact, all reason and logic may be washed out into the sea today. There is so much cognitive dissonance out in the world and perpetuated by the media. What you see out in the real world likely won't jive with the light of your gifts and your inner truth. Some people are used to this and they're okay with it. Well, not okay with it, but they're used to it and they can handle it. But others are prone to drowning their sorrows because it's simply too painful to recognize. This is a beautiful opportunity to pour heaps of unconditional love on all souls. I mean it, all souls. Don't pick and choose which souls, all souls. Then, Mercury joins Neptune on March 23rd at 10:43 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, and they're at 23 degrees 15 minutes of Pisces. If this were happening in Aries instead of Pisces, liar, liar, pants on fire would sum it up. With Mercury in Pisces, though, there's a vagueness to what's being communicated. It's not quite a lie. It's more lying by omission. It's like a confronted teenager saying, "No, Mom, I didn't lose my jacket," which isn't a lie because a teen knows darn well that they left their jacket at a party they weren't supposed to go to. But we moms have that Neptunian sixth sense when it comes to this stuff, just like you'll have a sixth sense about what's true with this transit. Communications will be more gray than black and white, so hold off on signing any contracts for a day or two if you can help it, unless your Pallas Athena and Jupiter-inspired lawyer signed off on it a few days before. You'll see clear signs in people's eyes and their third eye, that space between their eyes, which will show you whether they are telling the real truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. One of my favorite aspects of this transit is the possibility for telepathy, understanding the thoughts of another without speaking any words. This may already be happening to you and for you if you've been listening to your intuition. This brings us to one of the biggest transits of the year, Jupiter conjunct Neptune at 7:42 a.m. on Tuesday, April 12th. They're both at 23 degrees, 58 minutes. More on this monumental moment in a minute. And I was born, actually, very close to a Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, which probably explains why I'm so woo-woo and weird, but that's okay. All right, so to clarify and possibly make you even more confused, thank you very much, Neptune. The Sun on March 5th, so it already happened, and Mercury on March 20th conjunct Jupiter in Pisces first, before they join with Neptune on March 13 and 27 respectively. Then Jupiter and Neptune come together on April 12th, and I'll talk more about that in a second. Venus will conjunct Neptune in April, but I'm not going to get into that here because this blog is long enough. This post is long enough. So, okay, now that I confused you, why is that important? Well, first of all, Jupiter is the great expander and brings good fortune, and he's the traditional ruler of Pisces, so he's very happy there. He's so generous, to a fault perhaps, because when he's in Pisces, he'll expand whatever you're feeling and dreaming. If you're dreaming of abundance, gratitude, love, peace, and infinite supplies of organic, fair trade, 80% dark chocolate, that is what you'll manifest. But if you're focusing on fear, war, scarcity, anger, politicians, and the disgust of how they manufacture chicken McNuggets, that's what you'll get. Be careful what you wish for because the genie Jupiter will make it happen. And more importantly, like really, really more importantly, the conjunction with Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces marks a turning point in our world as we know it. None of us quite knows what's going to happen. Esteemed astrologer Pam Gregory and I joked around in her interview, and I'll post the link below in case you don't have it. Last September, when I interviewed her, that we might all turn into pixie dust with this conjunction. And this could very well be true for some of us who are ready to transition completely into the new earth, or even off planet and back to the stars from whence we came. For most souls, though, the changes and awakenings will come more gradually. That's why this post is only going to cover these first 3 Neptune and Pisces conjunctions of spring until Neptune and Jupiter comes together, or until they come together. What happens after that is up to us as humans and up to the divine. We could be transported into heaven or hell. I have a feeling it will be some of both, heaven and hell. But as I said, it's really up to us and our own perceptions within our reality. And that's the key to this Neptune energy. We are conditioned as very young children to listen to authorities like our parents, our teachers, the government, the news. It's good for people to learn and earn respect, but in the process, we are programmed to suppress our inner truth and our sovereignty. Most people don't condition kids out of malice. It's unconscious. We are simply perpetuating our own conditioning and programming. Ultimately, we're taught from a very young age to believe someone else's version of reality instead of creating our own reality. I'm going to say that again because I think it's the key right here. We're taught from a very young age to believe someone else's version of reality instead of creating our own reality. The Jupiter-Neptune conjunction on April 12th could be a point of great awakening for those who have been mired in the deep shadows of unconscious societal programming, just like it was in 1856 when Neptune and Jupiter last came together in Pisces. At that time, more and more people were waking up to the wrongs of slavery, which consequently led to the Civil War in the United States a few years later. Now, am I saying we could end up with another civil war in the US, or that the war in Eastern Europe is going to spread to other countries like a great flood? I don't have the answer to that. It is quite possible things could get worse before they get better in the 3D world, given the socioeconomic political polarities and the machinations of those in power to hold on to that power and exert as much control as they can. Fear and separation are and always have been powerful weapons for domination and control. Separating people into us versus them so that we can't feel the divine love and connection between us all is, in my humble opinion, as destructive to our spirits as a bomb is to our physical bodies. And, I've openly said, I have not been shy, that when I've said that the social distancing during COVID-19 was an effective head game. It was never about health. It was about deliberate separation and creating delusions through uncertainty, separation, and fear. Separation creates anxiety. Anxiety creates a constriction in our hearts and thus a fog in our thoughts. So we lose the clarity to make decisions and choices based on what's right for us, based on our inner truth and love. We don't allow ourselves to breathe, so we constrict even further in the anxiety and fear. We disconnect. We disconnect within and we disconnect from others. Except that love is always a more powerful force than fear. It's the most powerful force in the universe. Love connects us. That is one of the great truths of our universe and why humans have managed to stay alive and evolve over millennia instead of wiping each other out completely with the push of a button. Love doesn't conquer. It dissolves the fear and separation. Love brings us together with grace, forgiveness, a smile, and a hug, preferably a two-armed hug that lasts for minutes, not one of those one-armed, superficial pats on the back for a second or two. And here's the magic. One day, the anxiety created by the separation becomes so great that we burst forth from it in a great awakening and flowering of love. It's a beautiful rebirth from suffering to surrender. We surrender to the delusion of separation, and we awaken into beings of love. That is the glorious potential of the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. Millions of people across the planet have already awakened to the deep inner truths of love, sovereignty, and the new earth. They've drunk the love Kool-Aid, and they're not going to go back to the fear. For these souls who understand both their shadows and their gifts, this transit has amazing potential for further awakening and exploration of the truth of our connection together as humans with all life forms on this planet and beyond. Those who are just beginning their journey of awakening will need our acceptance, love, and forgiveness. Having the courage to move beyond the delusion of separation into the surrender of divine love deserves all the grace and compassion that exists in the universe. Every individual who embraces their awakening brings us 1,000 steps closer to creating paradise, with or without the pixie dust. I love you. And for those of you who are wondering what I'm up to, I am offering a free masterclass on March 17th to help people learn how to work with the cycles of the moon, to work with the lunar cycles so that you can flow. And you can check it out at www.embodyyourpurpose.com. And again, I'll post the link below. I would love to see you there. And thank you so much for listening. I'm Divinely Jennifer. Have a beautiful, beautiful day.